In a nutshell, it was basically Pandora for the real world.
Welcome to Founders in 15. I'm fortunate to have Babak Pahlavan, a friend, an entrepreneur. I've known Babak for a number of years, and welcome, Babak. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. Well, let's start with introductions. I mean, I've known you now for quite a few years.
A decade plus.
A decade plus.
That's right.
I remember when you were a student at Stanford, and you and Nima came to see me, and you were trying to explain this very complex thing that I didn't quite understand at the time. Well, let's start with your background, and then take me all the way through Stanford and kind of your start with Clever Sense.
I think you were our 43rd pitch.
Is that right?
I had heard the no 42 times before you. So with that,
I'm known to be a lucky person. So.
Yeah, so without the prelude, maybe we'll come back to that in terms of what happened then. So I guess my journey, so I guess we can call us like typical immigrants. We came here in the year 2000, my mom and dad and my sister. The way we came here was also sheer luck, absolute luck, because my mom won the green card lottery. And it would just so happen that it would apply to her spouse and then underage kids. So I was 17, my sister was 19. We came here, very little money. What we had for us was a fortunate and a very supportive family members in Orange County. They supported us, but within a year and a half, roughly, I ended up coming to UC Berkeley for my undergrad studies. I did electrical engineering, computer science, and then after that, I got into Stanford University. I thought I was going to do my PhD. Quickly, I realized there are so many smarter people than me that I was never going to be. I was never going to beat their game. Then I thought I was going to be a doctor for a while, because that was always my passion. That I'm okay with blood and just bodies and whatnot, but I'm like, I need to get somewhere faster. And also I realized I like building things. So so I ended up leaving Stanford. I quickly took, in a quarter, like I completely overdid everything. And just to get my master's and exit, we were gonna do this startup, which was my actually third. I'd done two little ones between Stanford and Berkeley that didn't go anywhere, quote unquote, learning moments, lots of learning moments. This is 2008. My advisor was fairly famous, Jeffrey Allman, who also happened to, before all of this, he was Larry and Sergey's advisor while they were at Stanford. So, we were set to go. We were raising money, but then the financial Armageddon happened.
I remember that.
That's right. So 2008. It was fun times. All the VCs and everyone we were talking to, they said seems like a good idea, and I'll tell you what the idea was. But we're gonna wait and see what happens with the market, see if there is a stock market after this. I ended up leaving that whole, I had a really good sort of position, everything was going good, but still my heart was in the startup because we had this idea that there was a need for it in the world.
Well, say more about the idea.
Yeah.
Well, why was it a big idea? Why did you decide to pursue it? Where did the passion come from?
Yeah, it came from this personal problem that I had. And it sounds cliche, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs talk about it, but it truly was the thing that I realized, there's a lot of online resources for websites to visit and what to do online, but in the real world, I still see this as a problem too. I don't think it's a solved problem, which is where can you go in the physical world that will match your taste, your interests, essentially. Our thought was we should apply machine learning to get to know you and get to know places, and then merge the two together. To figure out, to find places that you love, essentially. So if you know places you visit, we can find other places that you would have otherwise missed in the real world. And we had this additional, deeper thought that with this we can have a positive impact on local economies and larger economies. I had this like philosophical approach that I at times, looking back, it was a mistake. I was timid to talk about it because it felt like too much pie in the sky type of a thing. But it was this need that, it's just people are not getting the best out of their local communities and their local world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and in a nutshell, it was basically Pandora for the real world.
Yeah.
That was our idea.
No, I remember the example was that there were certain things that I would do in my local community in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I was traveling all over the world, and I wanted the same experience in, in Michigan and in Minnesota or in New York City or in London.
Originally, we started with that. That was it came from this need that like everywhere we visited, I knew all the places in Orange County prior, but then when I moved to Northern California, Bay Area, I still didn't know many of the places that I could visit. Started with that, but then the thought process, this is 2008, before machine learning and AI were the top of mind matter. We thought, what do really successful and affluent people do? They have an assistant. Like it finds them places to go to and whatnot. And our thought process was we will start with this physical location thing. But then the thought process was that this is going to evolve into answer anything that you would want and then get things done for you, essentially. When we launched the product in the summer of 2011. Yes, so we got funded in summer of 2010. This gentleman named Bobby Yazani showed up and he's like, why are we not investing in this thing? This sounds crazy not to do it. So we took investments in summer of 2010. We launched the company in summer of 2011. And then we got acquired by Google in Q4 of 2011.
So tell us a little bit about that kind of executive journey at Google. What was that like, and what did you learn, and how did you evolve and develop while you were at Google? You had multiple roles within Google.
First year I was developing and deploying our technology to be used for Google Maps and local and part of Google Assistant early on. And then I moved on to lead PMs for Google's measurement products. So early on it was Google Analytics, which people may recognize, and it was Google Tag Manager. Then I worked specifically a lot on the business. I learned a lot about like large-scale businesses, especially enterprise businesses, and overall how internet works, like in terms of business, like how is the whole cycle of data monetization, ads or subscription, how the whole thing works. So I ended up together with a large team over there. We ended up building an enterprise product system. It came Analytics 360. Then I did that for a few years, and I've taken on multiple different roles after that as well.
And a lot has happened in your personal life over the past years, and you have a lot ahead of you. So what's next? Where you're taking you next?
More and more, I'm thinking about the next decade of my life. I have a few ideas. I have a few things that I'm thinking about, but I've come to appreciate the finite duration that we have, not just to live, but also to work. You know, I'm 38 now. When we started the company, I was 26. When we sold it, I was 28. I can't believe I'm 38 now. But I'm thinking like, this is the question that's constantly going through my head. Like when I'm 48 and I look back, what have I done in my life? More and more, there's this, thirst in me that I want to tackle bigger problems, much bigger problems.
I was talking to Michael, my son, who you know. And, I remember he came down to your offices maybe a year or so ago trying to get some advice. And he always talked about this concept that a framework you've kind of exposed him to called high water.
The credit for that goes to Omid. Omid Kordestani taught me that. This notion of, there are multiple rivers. And all of us are like swimming in different rivers. The question is, which river do you want to be part of, right? So there's probably no such thing as luck. It's a matter of which water sort of which river you put yourself in. So if you're surrounded by people that are high-minded, they want to do the right thing, they're exceptionally smart and thoughtful people, chances are you're going to do the same with them. You're going to be part of that whole, some people call it rocket ship, some people call it like grouping, whatnot. But it has, no matter what, it has an exceptionally high impact on how you do, what you do, how you show up, all of that. Mm-hmm. Versus if you're not surrounding yourself with like, areas or like a set of constructs that are not, they don't have high goals, they don't have big ideas, they don't have a big way of thinking about life, then chances are that will be you as well. I think as human beings, we a lot of times no matter who we are, what we do, we get inspired by our surroundings.
You are a member of a very important company in our economy, in our country, in our ecosystem. What technologies are you most, I'm talking about core technologies that are you most excited about right now?
I think it's still AI and ML, they're still in the early innings of it. I don't think we're advanced, like compared to, the rate at which it's changing is just humongous. And actually, I was talking to a bunch of friends recently, and if you look back the arc of humanity, in the last, 40,000 years or so that humans have been around, we think, to this current form, it's always been pretty much the same. Like, work, eat, sleep, and then cycle through. It just so happens in the last 50 years of humanity, if aliens come and they look at what happened here, the last page of this story is dramatically different than what it was 39.
How is it different?
It started up with the Industrial Revolution, but then computers changed everything. But now, when you look back in the last 20 years, the rate at which things are changing is very dramatic. And with AI and ML, it's a massively interesting feedback loop. The faster it gets, the more we can give birth to faster AI, and it just continues on and on and on until probably the singularity is reached. So I think it's a huge story, and I think we will definitely see it in our lifetime. Computers can actually see and analyze objects and eventually interact with you, and an application of that is self-driving cars. Like seeing cars that people are driving is going to be a dramatic thing. That it's like, why do you have, like, it's as if like you have horses on the streets today. It'll be like that. But I think it's not just that. It's just having AI having an ability to cognitively understand things the way humans do and be able to interact. We're still in the early innings of it. To me, there's a lot more to do there. And a side parenthesis there is the notion of teaching. Another big story there is teaching core AI compassion, like teaching humanity to machines now. Because so far it's always been like logics and like 0 and 1s and making harsh decisions unemotionally, right? But what makes us special is also not just our logic, but also our emotions. So to me, that's a huge thing. Another big thing is, I think certainly blockchain is something that's going to probably, I'm not an expert in blockchain, but just from what I'm reading and what I'm trying to educate myself on right now, it feels like it's going to have probably the same close to effect of the original basis of internet. Something when HTTP protocols came out, like this is going to have the similar probably impact. There's so many systems that are going to get either appended or updated or whatnot. To me, these are the two. And then the third one, which is not a core technology, but it's the merger of those two that I mentioned with biology and chemistry. Like we're at a point that a lot of infrastructure is coming online the job is to discretize like biology, so that everything turns into data. And once you have data, there's so much more you can do with it, and you can create inputs and outputs.
Oh, I agree with you on the digitalization of the biology, because to me, cancer is a math problem, is a permutation problem, and it needs to be personalized for every single human being.
A detection problem and a math problem. Exactly. If you can detect it early on, if you can forecast what's going to happen, you can just. It's a shame that a lot of people are dying because the science
is not there. No, very excited. Well, thank you for taking time and spending time with me today. Again, I'm fortunate to know you, and I'm looking forward to your journey.
Well, thanks for having me, and please promise me that you're gonna stay with me. We have you on tape, so now I'd like you to stay with me for the next decade or so.
I appreciate that.
I feel like just like I'm still the beginning of it. That's how I like to think still.
I like that. Thank you.
Bobby.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.